Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to talk about EVs, specifically why they have been doing so poorly given the expectation these automakers had for them. And the article I'm looking into today is appropriately titled How EVs Became a Massive Disappointment by CNN Business. As always, the link to it is in the description below. Now, before I get into the article, I wanted to say that even though I don't own one myself, I like EVs in general. I think under the right conditions for certain people, EVs make a lot of sense. So I'm all for them being an option. The EV business model, on the other hand, I have a lot of issues with, and I'll get into that shortly, but let's dive into this article first. Now, the article mentions early on an important note that EV sales are actually growing, so it's not a matter of sales but more so the results in comparison to the expectations, because EV sales in 2024 and 2023 were up year to year. However, the article says, but the EV market has nevertheless become a major disappointment. There is a troubling gap between expectations and reality. Expectations, in my opinion, were based on pandemic prices and market conditions. The pandemic, in my opinion, caused a considerable amount of the current delusion and pie-in-the-sky thinking in the auto industry. And because we haven't fully recovered from the effects of the pandemic shortages, especially in the used car market, a lot of these auto dealers still hang on to a lot of that old thinking. And it's interesting because some of these auto dealers want the prices of the pandemic era, but the volume of the pre-pandemic era, basically wanting to have their cake and eat it too. Now, some are getting away with that in the short run, but in the long run, it's not going to work out for all of them. Now, to continue on with this article, it says, industry experts cite a number of reasons for this, including vehicle price, lack of charging capacity, and confusing tax credits. There are no number of reasons. It's one reason, prices. That's the main reason and really the only reason. And if you look at the two other reasons, they both go back to prices. Charging stations would be more abundant if there were more EV vehicles on the roads. And the reason there aren't more vehicles? Prices. You also know what could get rid of the need for these confusing tax credits? Lower prices so that people don't need tax credits to begin with. So it's all about prices. But these automakers want EVs to have the price range of higher end vehicles, but the sales number of the more affordable ones. Well, that's just not going to happen, and it's a large part of the reason as to why they're always going to be disappointed with the EV numbers. The article then says, besides being too expensive for the average buyer, selection is limited in terms of body style, said Corey Cantor, an industry analyst with Bloomberg. The vast majority are relatively expensive SUVs, and there are few sedans or compact cars for customers who want something different. Here's the thing, the auto industry had a lot of cheap gas sedans in its earlier stages before gradually phasing most of the lower price vehicles for more expensive SUVs and trucks. This was slowly done so they could make higher margins and more profits per vehicle. But the cheap sedan phase in and of itself was very important to get consumers to adopt cars en masse. Well, for EVs, these automakers decide to skip that cheap sedan phase and go straight to the expensive, higher margin SUV phase. The problem is that it just doesn't work like that. There needs to be a period of affordability to get people into the market, and once they're in and you have that ecosystem around these EVs, you start to phase out the cheaper models. Not that I agree with that, by the way. As a consumer, I don't like that. I would prefer cheaper options to always be available, but I understand companies are always going to strategize to make more profits in a capitalist system. The thing is, automakers of today are so greedy that they can't even pursue long-term profits properly because they don't want to sacrifice any short-term money. So they end up screwing themselves and their customers because they have that short-sighted thinking. The article then states, as the COVID shock retreated, we learned that as you scale EVs to 5,000 to 7,000 units a month, you move into the early majority customer. They are not willing to pay a significant premium for EVs. For Chief Executive Jim Farley, this is a huge moment for us. Why was this a huge moment for them? Did they not see this coming? I really wonder, assuming this statement is true, what kind of economists are hiring to consult them on these business decisions? They must be economists that only know the COVID market. That would be my guess. They only envision a market where cars are scarce and the government is giving out free money. Most people outside of the enthusiasts don't care for EVs, but will consider them if they see them as a cheaper option. Here's the thing though, I don't think a lot of these automakers hire or listen to economists. For them, they just believe what they want to believe and just hope it manifests into reality. A lot of their investors are greedy and probably have the same mindset too, because there's no way no one saw this coming. What's more likely is that these companies are full of yes men, so they become an echo chamber when it comes to company decisions. The article then goes on to say, this is why Ford recently cut prices for the Mach-E SUV, and why Farley created a team to work on less expensive EV engineering platform that will be a basis for future models. Now, I never really understood the concept behind these electric muscle cars, since much of the marketing behind muscle cars was centered around their engines and the loud noises they create. Does it really make sense to make electric versions of them? I would think you would have to build a new brand for these EV muscle cars and have a new type of marketing centered around them. Maybe something that focuses on performance, but the vast majority of muscle car enthusiasts are not interested in muscle EVs with fake engine noises. Same issue I think applies to electric trucks. Now, let's go back to the statement when Farley says less expensive engineering platforms. It's telling that he talks about cutting the production costs rather than producing something more affordable for most people. It's like the notion of cheaper vehicles but higher sales numbers seems completely out of the picture nowadays. Automakers have completely abandoned the pre-COVID model of selling cars in mass, and the EV business model is firmly rooted in this paradigm. It's bizarre because these companies try to make it seem like that they're going electric because they're concerned about the environment, but at the same time, they're not willing to change their business strategy to optimize that goal. In fact, for the most part, let's be honest, it's the greed agenda that's driving this, not the green agenda. There's nothing green about the way they conduct their EV business. The rest of this article then talks about charging stations and EV credits, making them seem like they're a much bigger deal than they actually are. And while I understand they're an issue, like I said earlier, it all goes back to prices. If you get rid of these high, ridiculous prices for EVs, you solve most of these other issues. But that's the gist of the article. As I said earlier, its link is in the description below. What do you guys think of the EV market? Let me know in the comment section below. Do you agree that it's hampered by a lot of greed? And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to click like and subscribe, as it does help the channel. Thanks for listening, and see you guys in the next one.